So if you're like me and you're into spirituality, or you've ever been on social media, which I guarantee you have, you've probably read or seen somewhere that the ego is bad, that the ego is causing so many problems, that being cocky, it has an association with ego, and if you're cocky, that's bad. And sometimes if someone's really confident, they get accused of having a big ego. And I want to first just hit you with why this is harmful. So you have to understand that the ego is actually a part of you. So if you start beating yourself up or for having an ego, you're literally just ruining your self-esteem. You're ruining a healthy ego. We're going to get into that later, how to build a healthy ego. And I'm also going to take you through what I've learned about the ego and how it's helped and hurt me. But first, you have to understand, again, the ego is a part of you, and you never want to disown a part of you because you're literally disowning yourself. You're going to go through this world feeling fragmented and less than others. You may see someone who you assume doesn't have an ego and put them on a pedestal, but when you put anyone on a pedestal, you're just putting yourself below them. So now that we understand we all have an ego, let's understand why we have an ego. So we have an ego for survival purposes. We have to know why we have value. We have to understand our strengths. We have to identify with our strengths so we know what we offer, right? If you're going on a job interview and you don't know what you offer, how are you ever going to get that job to make money? We are put on this earth to create, meaning to have kids and to push our genes farther along. If you don't know what you offer to a potential partner, you're never going to meet your biological desires, right? So we have to understand that we need an ego. We need an identity. An ego is basically your identity, your self-image, to survive in this world. If we didn't have an ego, we'd also just be pushed around like feathers in the wind. Imagine if you didn't know who you were. Imagine you didn't know your strengths and your weaknesses. What if you didn't know what you cared about or what you didn't care about? Then anyone could tell you anything and you're just going to follow what they say. You're vulnerable to manipulation. You're vulnerable to a negative comment. If you don't know who you are, what anyone says can really affect and damage you. And now you're in a very reactive state. I mean, I just feel that. Imagine you have no clue what to think about yourself, and because one, you think you shouldn't think anything about yourself. That's what a lot of spiritual teachings will teach you, is to have ego death, that you shouldn't have any, don't identify with your thoughts at all, right? Don't think there's an I. You should never think, oh, I am this or I am that. But if you didn't have that, you would just be pushed around and just feel so anxious. I can imagine not being grounded in some sort of identity. It's almost like a weight at the bottom of a sail. And you didn't have that weight, the water would just push you around. So I think you understand where I'm getting that with that point. You need to have some sort of grounding energy within your mind and body. Otherwise, you are just vulnerable to the world. And you're never going to be on a straight path to success if you're constantly getting pushed. You may not even want to go on any path. You're so scared that you don't want to do anything. You're frozen in fear. So now that we understand that the ego is bad, but first, let's look at other examples on why we think the ego is bad. So we see someone, let's say Kanye West, right? He's thought of to be an egomaniac. John Mayer admitted to being an egomaniac. So how does this ideology come about? Why would John Mayer admit to being an egomaniac? It's because he was a victim of his ego. He let his ego run him. He was in the ego, but not of the ego. So he was so controlled by it and his desires that he couldn't stay grounded within his true highest self. I really think a healthy ego is grounded in their most authentic highest self. And John Mayer was he talked about all the women he was with and how he was so worried about what people were thinking at one point in his career. And these are the downsides of the ego. It's if you have an image of yourself and you're not completely grounded in it, you can become defensive. You can take things very personally. You can doubt yourself. Imagine you think you are the greatest musician or basketball player and you go through a little bit of a slump. You have songs that are not landing. You have shots that are not going in. And now you begin to doubt yourself in your image. And now your image is in flux. Your image is now questioned. And as humans, we like certainty more than anything. We like to know more than anything. The unknown is very scary. So imagine if everything you thought about yourself was maybe in question or was being doubted. How would that feel? Imagine how you think about yourself now, even your positive traits. Imagine you have a couple failures, you get fired from a job, someone breaks up with you randomly, someone doesn't reply to a text. And how's that going to change how you think of yourself? But this is innate in the ego. This is one of the limitations of the ego. And we can transcend that by being honest. Do we still have room to grow? Are we not as good as we think? So these are ways we can be honest with ourselves, because the ego doesn't want to be honest with itself. It just wants to feel good all the time. So it identifies with the positive because it just wants to feel good all the time. And what John Mayer was talking about with his ego, it just wanted more girls to inflate his image, to make the ego bigger. He wanted more fame to make his ego bigger. He bought a lot of stuff. He had the money to, obviously, but he felt like he was buying stuff to make his self-image bigger. And when does that chase ever end? Right? When is that one girl that he finally has relations with makes him feel complete? And if it's one girl, let's say it was Jennifer Aniston, rumored Jennifer Aniston, Jessica Simpson, if those girls aren't making him complete, which ones will? These were some of the most popular, most attractive people in mainstream media. If that didn't make him fulfilled, what will? So we understand the ego inherently has its limitations, but the goal shouldn't be to get rid of it, because that's impossible. The goal should be to hold on to it less. But okay, now let's go back to Kanye West, because Kanye West for sure is very reactive. He's very sensitive. Eminem, my favorite person besides Kobe and Eminem, my top two favorite. They were very sensitive to what the media were saying about him. Eminem more than anyone. He'll make a full album based off the critiques, replying to critiques about a previous album or about a song. He'll dedicate a song to one person's critique. That's how sensitive he is. That's how much he's protective of his ego. But that's also what makes him great, right? And he will listen to the feedback, and he will come out with an album that's even better. At first it will sting, it will hurt, but he'll transcend that pain, be honest with himself, and be like, yeah, that Relapse album wasn't that good. I'm going to come back with Recovery. Recovery had Love the Way You Lie. Recovery had a lot of great songs on there. Arguably his most popular album, besides the Eminem Show. Eminem Show is my favorite. I think that album is flawless. Dr. Dre did all the production, but Recovery had more pop songs, and it's arguably the most popular because of that. But let's go back to Kanye West. So he had a major blow up, and his blow up was he couldn't handle the doubt of his own superiority. So he has to kind of create a God complex. He even calls himself God. He has these grandiose ideas about himself to protect any outside influence. But it's normal to doubt yourself. It's normal to experience doubt. If you didn't take feedback, if you didn't at least listen to what people were saying, you are going to go down a path that isn't the most efficient. There's a difference between hate and constructive feedback. Even hate can be used as constructive feedback. If you say something and a lot of people aren't resonating with it, then maybe, or it really triggered people, then perhaps you got to look at it. But again, the ego is incapable of that. So now we have examples of why we need an ego, and it's unhealthy to disown it. We have examples of how the ego does innately have limitations, and this is what the spiritual books talk about. I wish spiritual books had almost fine print where, and some of them do, but it's not a big enough portion of the book that you forget about it. And the things that stand out are realizing the limitations. So when you read a book and it points out all the limitations of the ego, you're like, man, yeah, I suffer from all those. The ego's bad, right? And you still live in this dichotomous world or this duality where the ego is good or bad. Instead of the ego being both. The ego has strengths and weaknesses. So now we understand the strengths and weaknesses. How can we build the healthiest ego? And I kind of alluded at it earlier a little bit. It's understanding its limitations. When you understand the limitations of yourself, you now can either strengthen those things or focus on your strengths. So if you understand that your ego every now and then is going to doubt itself, you can be like, okay, I'm okay with that doubt. I'm not going to let it completely affect how I see myself. Right? You understand that there's going to go through periods where you have doubt, you have some pain, and you transcend it. But now, how do we really build the healthiest self-image? So you have being honest with yourself, being truthful. It takes a lot of courage to admit to your own flaws. You know, I had a critique the other day while I was at work, and I've been in my field for about going on 9.5, 10 years. So when I get a critique, I'm kind of like, who are you to tell me? I've been doing this for 9 to 10 years, and you've been doing this for like 5 months, right? So that's my ego talking. That's my ego getting defensive and getting worrisome that I may not be as good as I think. But once I was able to calm down a bit and looked at what that person said and what they were critiquing, I was like, yeah, I'm actually not that good. And now, since I accepted that, I can actually work on that. Right now, I can work on that and get even better. And this is one thing I think Kobe did so well. He always reevaluated his game and his skills and is like, how can I make myself the strongest player on the court? At one point, he broke his right hand and he started just shooting with his left hand. He couldn't play, obviously, with a broken hand, but he was like, I have to play basketball. This is still a time, even though I have a broken hand, to work on some aspect of my game. So he started shooting free throws with his left hand. He started doing everything with his left hand. And then when he played with another player, they would have competitions who can make the most shots left-handed. Kobe has once made a fadeaway three-pointer with his left hand. He would make some ridiculous shots with his left hand. So he used any opportunity he could to strengthen himself. So he even used the hate that he was receiving, and he let that fuel his desires, and it helps him build a healthier ego. So what I really think how to build a healthy ego is to really look at your strengths and ground yourself within them. We already know the limitations. We already know that you have to be aware of your weaknesses, and you can choose or not to build those up. But what I think is better is to be aware of what you're good at. How can you turn a strength into a superpower? How can you look at your experiences in your life, be like, yeah, I do that well, I do that well, and you can now build on those to make them even better. So for me, I used to be very shy and introverted, and that was a big weakness of mine, right? A massive weakness. I didn't kiss a girl in high school. I fell into depression when I moved away to college because I didn't have the skills to meet new friends or have any sort of dating life. The only thing I did as an escape was go to the gym. So I knew I had to make a change, right? I accepted, instead of running away from the fears of socializing, which I did in high school, I would just play video games and play basketball. Basketball literally was my way of avoiding going to parties. I didn't go to any football games in high school. I only went to prom because my friend pushed me into the girl I was interested in. So, but it took me a while to admit that, yeah, this is a problem. I need to fix this. So once I admitted that and got comfortable with that, I started doing the research on how I can get better. And now the only reason why I'm making these videos, because now I feel like I communicate so well. And I've learned to really enjoy communication. After all the books I read, I feel like now it's like a strength, if not a superpower. I can go on a job interview and I can almost guarantee I'm going to get that job. That's the conviction I have based off experience, a lot of trial and error. There was 2 years at Starbucks where I tried to get every customer and all my coworkers to like me. Again, like me is you can argue if that's healthy or not, but I knew how to do it in a way to where I wasn't coming off like too nice and ungrounded. I knew how to tether myself within myself and then get someone to like me. And that's part of getting someone to like you is if they respect you. If you feel like you're trying to be super nice and playful to get them to like you, they're paradoxically not going to like you. But if you learn to stay grounded within yourself and make a joke because you think it's funny, self-amusement, they're going to be like, oh, this guy's on his own path. He's in his own world. That's attractive. So I spent years dialing this in. I got my first girlfriend. She was a Starbucks customer. She was coming in, and just through basic chit chat, some jokes, I saw she was attracted, asked for her number, and one thing led to another. So I honed in that skill. And then just to get even better at it, I would go out and just approach people and just start talking with them. If I was in class, I was like, how can I make everyone around me like me and just start this like little party, a little group in the back, right? If I'm new to a work environment, so I used to cover shifts when I was working at Starbucks and other stores. It's like, how can I make everyone at the store have fun and like me and beg me to stay? And that would happen, right? So I turned what once was a weakness into a strength. And I wouldn't be making any sort of video content. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be making YouTube videos, I would have thought you were crazy. I actually started out content creation with writing because I was still scared to put myself in front of camera and talk and so worried about what people were thinking of me and all these things. I'm using now YouTube as my next form of progression, of a way to even bettering myself. Because I realized I still was running away from making videos because I felt like that's what I wanted to do. And when I get in front of people, I see how much they like me, right? So I'm like, oh man, I could just, if I were able to do this on camera, I feel like I could do pretty well. But I was too scared to put myself on camera because I scared putting out a video and what people would say about the video. And there's a reason why I'm still not on Instagram. Like I can take clips from this video, put it on Instagram, but I'm still worried about what friends and family will think. So I'm using making videos as a way to transcend that weakness or that fear. So through experience, through choosing a path, you can build a healthy ego. Your brain needs proof, not promises. Your brain needs proof you are the person you say you are. I can't say I'm a great basketball player unless I put in the work to be a great basketball player. I can't say I'm a good rapper if I don't improve on my lyrical abilities, right? So you have to choose a path, and that path becomes your hero's journey. And there's so many other skills you learn through your path. It really develops you as a person. Through working on my social skills, I read about spirituality, and because I realized my ego was an issue. So I learned how to like deal with it better, and spiritual books helped me with that. I learned through spiritual books about energy work and how to manage my energy better. And I can go on 4 hours sleep. I'm on 5 hours sleep right now, worked a full 8-hour shift, come right back home, make a video. I learned through other books about productivity, making lists, making priority tasks, and no matter what, getting those done. I read books about purpose, and that's why I'm able to make these videos every single day with little sleep. I've read books about the brain, nutrition, I started realizing that if I wanted my energy to be as optimal as I can, I have to study nutrition. And when I started doing that, I was able to work from 4:30 in the morning to 1 p.m. and then go to the gym and then go to school. Crazy, crazy work ethic. And there's so many things I learned just to build my social skills, because it took discipline to force myself to go out. You got to have a bigger reason why to really go through rejection or deal with the fear of being rejected. If I saw someone walking around school that I want to talk to, I'd just walk up to them and talk to them. You got to have a big reason why you're doing that. And you have to learn how to deal with that fear. And the momentum of getting better at social skills transcended my negative ego. It transcended my negative energy. Anytime you can get and reach a new level of consciousness, you're going to be better off. But you can only do that through motion, through action. You can't do that through meditating or just letting go or manifesting. This is why manifestation, affirmations, that stuff doesn't work. If you really think about it energetically, an object in motion stays in motion. So if you really want to transcend or purge that negative energy or the negative aspects of your ego, you have to get into a different energy. And you only do that with motion. Have you ever been so tired, but then you force yourself to go to the gym, and when you're there, you don't feel tired. You feel really good. Like, I was really tired before I pressed record on this. Now it's 22 minutes in on the dot, and I feel pretty good. I feel like I can stop this and make another one, which I might do. So that's how you build a healthy ego. It's through experience. It's through understanding your limitations. It's turning weaknesses into strengths. It's choosing a path and evolving to a higher level of consciousness, to reaching your full potential. And your full potential is not limited to your ego, your primal programming. Your full potential knows how to accept and then transcend. It knows how to be in the ego but not of it. It knows how to use it. Your highest self is so in tuned to, okay, these thoughts, these ideas are helping me move forward. These ones, not so much. These fears and worries, not so much. How can I let go of these fears and worries, right? This is the part of the ego you may want to let go. Your ego is very fearful. It's always looking out for danger. So if you learn how to let go of fear, all you will see is upside. But you have to pick that upside. And when you pick that upside and the fear comes in, that's the best time to accept it and transcend it. So ultimately, if I were to suggest anything, it's to pick a path. And that path is going to develop you as a person. It doesn't matter what that path is. Perhaps you're in engineering and you want to become a really good engineer. That's what Elon Musk did. He started studying engineering when he was 10. And I think he came out with like his first video game or software when he was 13. And there's so many things he's learned through his engineering path that now he's in the position he is. And you can't tell me that that man probably doesn't have a healthy amount of ego with the amount of prosperity he's experiencing, but also giving. Look how much he wants to change the world. It's not even about him anymore. He literally wants to change the world, and he's doing it. I see more Teslas on the road than ever before. It's absurd how much of an impact he's having. He can have one little tweet, and it could make or break a market. Like, think of Dogecoin or whatever it was. He inflated a piece of crap cryptocurrency, and who else in the world could do that? He also deflated Bitcoin with one tweet. So you have to understand, he picked a path, and through that path, he is evolved into a higher state of consciousness. Again, hope this video helped. Until next time.